Welcome to DagNabitGarage. Going to take a little time to sort of finish up this dash repair. We've got it right here. I want to explain the graining process. Now, in my other video, you would have seen me take the miniaturized fiberglass cloth and put that in all the cracked areas that are repaired. Then I took a China bristle brush with a primer. In the first case, I laid out a streak of primer and then pushed the fiberglass into it. And then I painted the top and pushed it in just by dabbing straight into the fiberglass. That's kind of how you have to do fiberglass if you're building a boat. It's a little more complex than that, but what you have to do is take some kind of tool, usually a hard bristle brush, to drive the adhesive resin through the cloth. In this case, we want something more flexible. Resin is not flexible at all. It's really, really hard. So what I did is I used a UV primer that I use for everything. You could use epoxy, maybe a 2K. I didn't say this in the video, but you possibly could even use a single stage primer to hold the fiberglass down. It's going to work either way. The fiberglass is where your strength is, but you want something very thin. Now, I put a couple more coats on here, and I actually blended areas where I didn't repair the dash, like this area here, I didn't. And after I did that, it was pretty obvious where I'd stop. So I went in, put another coat in here, and on the second coat, since I wasn't trying to drive the material through the cloth, I brushed it on, and then I took a piece of paper towel, Bounty, because it's got a little bit of texture to it, and I just dabbed everything. And I actually filled in these areas, and I kind of went where there was no repair, and I kind of dabbed those areas too, just to kind of even everything out. I had one area where I was a little bit suspicious that you would see it. I had actually put fiberglass filler in this area over the top of the repair, and I actually continued it over here because I thought I might have a lump. This feels awesome, but I'm be fooling myself if I thought this was real flexible. It does kind of push on my fingers a little. But here's the thing, there's a couple of other ways to add grain to this, and I'm going to shut this off and go to the second way. But first, painting with a brush, very dry, your primer, and then taking paper towel before it can dry and dabbing it to put a little bit of a texture in it. And it'd be hard to see this, but this has a very fine texture on it. I want it bigger. 70 Dodge Challenger dash had a bigger grain to it. And I did this professionally for about 5 years, and since then I never stopped. I've repaired many, many, many hundreds of dashes in my career. But then spraying a texture on, there's a couple of ways to do that. One that I really like, my 71 Challenger convertible, I did this on all my white door panels to restore them. What you do is you take a big nozzle for a spray gun, oversized, 0.52 I think is what I'm going to use when I do this second video. And what you do is you stay way off of it and just drift it on. I'm going to have to put some kind of mask over the Challenger emblem so it doesn't get bumpy. I may actually mask this part off to some degree because it looks beautiful, but I may not. But you just stay off of it and then just look at it. And the trick is, do not wet it out. When this dries, you'll be able to take a piece of sandpaper, maybe 600, 800, and knock the tops off those dots of primer, and it will look a lot like grain. The other thing you can do is you can go to a company like Fitzgerald, and they have chemicals that will spray a grain on these dashes. And with a little bit of practice, you can pretty much match just about any grain you want. I personally use a Mohawk product that was made for cracked cracking lacquer. I think that's actually what it's called, crackle lacquer. And what that does is I can put interior dye on here. The spray cans are really tough because it doesn't put it on wet enough or fast enough to use the crackle lacquer from a spray can. But when I was using it in quarts, in fact, I need to buy like a quart of vinyl dye. That would be perfect. Then I could put it in my spray gun. But you spray that out. And if you don't have the equipment I have, you're just gonna have to use the can stuff. So you can do sections. The problem with doing sections is you'll get a big grain and a little grain, a big grain, a little grain. And what you have to do is build up enough of the vinyl dye to where it stays wet longer, and it actually has some depth to where the cracks can go down and look natural. That's a trick. You're probably gonna be fine, especially in this where it's not on the face of the dash at all. Probably going to be fine to just put the big bumps on it from spraying from way off with a big tip in the gun and then sanding that flat. I don't really know how you're going to accomplish this if you don't have a spray gun set up, but I'm sorry. If that be the case, then you may just have to put it on with a brush and dab it with paper towel. And you can do that 3, 4, 5 coats, and it will actually get more uniform and look nicer as you go, and then the vinyl dye will take over what's left. Anything's better than waiting a year, 2 years, paying $3 grand, or I think I've heard something insane like you can get it quicker if you want to give them $6 grand for a dash. Those dashes are not that good. I've bought them. Yeah, they're nice, they look nice, but they are a pain in the butt to put in because they make them thicker. Your windshield post pillars don't fit right. Your bottom stuff, you know, your bottom plastic that goes under the radio and the heater controls, it doesn't want to butt up to it. You end up having to take a razor blade and trim it, and then there's no vinyl there at all. There's just foam underneath. I hate it. Nothing like an original dash. And, you know, since I did this in the last couple weeks, I've seen a couple of dashes that'd be a piece of cake to fix compared to this one. And this one was actually a pretty good project for showing you guys how to do this. And that's all I'm trying to do is help. Let's give it a go. All right, that looks fantastic. You know, there's always things that you can look at and say, well, I could have done a little bit more here, but it is a nice composite of the original grain and what I put in it. I do see a couple little nicks in it, imperfections in the repair, but I'm just going to leave them there. Less is more as far as I'm concerned. When this is done, I'm going to scuff this. You could take a green Scotch-Brite from the kitchen and scuff this whole dash to get adhesion. Or you can use a Body Shop one. Red would be what I would use. The other thing you may want to do is go over it with a piece of 1000 foam backed, hopefully, and just knock it down and make sure there's nothing standing up, because a natural dash will feel very smooth. It won't have any imperfections in it other than the grain. So you don't want anything that grabs your hand, or when you know, say you armor all your dash, which that's the other benefit of this. Once you do this to a dash and you cover it with vinyl dye, Armor All will not hurt the dash any longer. The only way Armor All hurts the dash is if you put it on the bare plastic. It goes in and lifts the plasticizer out of the dash and makes it crack. We're well beyond that point with this. So once you get this to where there's nothing that grabs your microfiber towel and sticks in it with lint, that's when you want to put your vinyl dye on. And if you run your hand over the vinyl dye and you feel some trash in it, you can actually sand that out very carefully, maybe with 1500 or 2000 wet and dry sandpaper, and then put a tight coat of dye over the top. But anyway, the sun will dry this UV primer in about 20 minutes, even though it's cloudy and not real sunny out here. So we'll come back to that, and I'll see if I've got a can of dye here. I'd like to get some dye on it and finish up this project. Signing off. Okay, I've been taking a piece of, foam-backed 1000 grit, just kind of going over it to get some of the residue off from the sanding. Make sure there's nothing that stands up that's going to feel weird. This feels really good. I'm going to take the camera. This little bit of dust makes it very evident what the grain looks like. And of course, I want you to see how close this is in this case. All right, so I've got some vinyl dye, so that's going to be the next step. First off, let me take this and let's switch the camera around. And I want you to see, all right, here on the ends is the natural grain. Down here is more of the natural grain, especially through here on this side of the opening is the natural grain. Here, of course, you know there's no natural grain there, but look how nicely it blends in with the rest. And you know, this part of the dash, other than one little place up in here, was original. So a lot of that grain is still showing. It's camouflaged a little bit with some of the things that I did. When you take and go over this, you know, you don't want to block it flat because you don't want to knock off the grain too much. But this kind of goes into the grain and knocks the top off and makes it a little more flat, which is more natural. Plus, what I'm doing now is just kind of making sure that the vinyl dye has something good to stick to. The primer I use sticks like super glue, so there's no problem there. But with this, I want to make sure it doesn't. And there, the secret is just don't put on a thick coat. Don't try to submerge the dash in. Cleaning is very important. If you've got armor all in the dash, you really need to check with that. You know, take a piece of duct tape, masking tape, see how it sticks. If you don't have any adhesion, that's a good place to start these repairs. All right, so I'm going to finish up and discuss a little bit of the steps of this. So first things first, I'm going to get, first of all, you want to analyze the dash with a straight edge. Cut down or heat down all the edges. Then you want to super glue it, multiple coats. You can take a single edge razor blade to level it, because super glue is not much fun to sand. In the end, you will have to sand it. Once you get that level, then you can put your fiberglass down with your primer of choice, whether it be some kind of single stage, I don't know, Rust-Oleum maybe, just with a China bristle brush. The fiberglass cloth you can get off eBay. Once that's down, then you start camouflaging that. Lightly sand in between each coat, but don't sand through the fiberglass. Work more on your edges because those will want to stand up in the fiberglass. You got to feather those back. If you have to sand that off, that's fine. Then just keep going. If you go with a couple of coats with a China bristle brush and daubing straight down into it, that's best. Then finally you want to, you know, get to the point where you're putting primer on and then daubing it with a paper towel. I like Bounty paper towel just because it's got a little bit of a pattern to it and it seems to look really nice. Then the last thing you do after you got everything done, and of course stop and feel through it with your hand. Like I say, in this area I added some fiberglass filler, and I did that in some of the areas just to make sure that the fiberglass filler has fiberglass material in it and it's inclined to not crack. The top of this dash should hold up just fine. If it ever cracks again, it probably would be these two corners or over here somewhere, but it definitely shouldn't be in any of these areas. So anyway, here we go. Less is more. When you put the dye down, you can just dust it. Don't have to be in a hurry to get it to turn black. Very satisfying at this point, getting this to this point. I've done this a zillion times, seems like, and I always love this part of it because I don't have to have somebody tell me I did a good job. I know. It's very obvious, very satisfying, and especially when I put this in a perhaps a six-figure car, and I didn't put any money into the reproduction dash business like some have, where they get ripped off by these different providers. I actually heated up some of the little dents on the front of this, and they came out really, really nice. I just used my fingers, careful not to burn, not to stay on it. I'd heat it up, and then I'd push it back into place, and all the imperfections on the front of the dash just went away. Very impressive. I did have the typical little bumps right here, and I sanded them a little bit. Not a whole lot you can do about that. I mean, I suppose I could. I could have cut them out and made a repair there, but I chose not to. You know, this process works anywhere there's damage, so it's just a matter of deciding if you want to lose more of your original grain. This was such a nice dash. I've had it for years, and I didn't throw it away because I knew eventually I could fix it for someone. I thought maybe one of my local friends or customers would need this dash. Anyway, I know there's hundreds of these dashes out there with cracks in them that haven't made it to the people that strip it down to the frame and start over. And some of them, like this one, was outside. I mean, it was all rusty through here in the speaker area, so it actually sat outside and rusted. The back frame was really rusty. I used some Osco on it to get that off, and it cleaned up pretty nice. But where the air conditioning vents go in this dash, it was rusty in there. Doesn't hurt a thing. I mean, this is absolutely a beautiful dash. Slight little lump there, but nobody but me is going to notice that. And once it's in a car, you won't see it. I mean, it is very, very slight. Like I say, this dash didn't have a lot of distortion to it. Now, what I'm going to do, that stuff dries almost instantly. So what I'm going to do is turn the picture around and let you look at the finished product. I'm just going to move along it really slowly. The UV primer, when it's dry, it's dry. It doesn't move, it doesn't shrink. It's actually kind of a plastic type primer. I've tried tearing it. It doesn't tear easy, which makes it really good for dashes. I do see a little bit of a weirdness right here where there's kind of a lump, but it doesn't look bad. The lump doesn't go to the corner, which is what a lot of repairs will look like. And even that, I could go back over this at any point. I could cut that out and redo it, put fiberglass in it again, regrain it, and you'd never know. And like I say, the same way with if this dash ever gets another crack in it, well, look at what's been fixed. I mean, it's nothing to take and fix another crack. I kept that from getting anything on it. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. And that stitching is really, really nice, just like it was in 1969 or early 70 when this dash pad was made. 1 year dash pad. And I would be inclined to say that this could go in any kind of car. You know, because it's an air dash, it wouldn't go in a 6-pack or a TA or an AAR, but it could go in a 440 4-barrel or a 383 car. or just a nice convertible. The other thing is, and I didn't address this, I have easily converted these to a 3-speaker dash, cutting the holes. It's helpful if you have the little frames to go on the back. You can put them where they're supposed to go. Seems like they're even indented where the screw holes go, so it's real easy to locate the opening. The biggest trick with something like this dash is so hard, you'd have to be really, really careful cutting it, because what could happen, you could put pressure on it and it would splinter out and crack it again. So a lot of times what I do is I'll take a hole saw and I'll cut the corners of the opening, which makes them round and nice and everything. And then I may even take a heated knife and just take my time and cut through that vinyl, and then it's super easy. And the same way with the bottom of it, you can get in there and cut those openings pretty easily. Lots of guys have done that. But this area right here I was a little concerned with, because I was blending the factory grain into this area, and it's, if anything, I would have liked to have come in here and done a little bit more with this. I did see like a little texture right there that I'm not happy with, but nobody's going to see it but me, and I could easily fix it if it was an issue. So anyway, hopefully this helps. Another 12 minutes, so I got plenty of stuff to edit down to get you guys to watch this. But like I say, my goal is to help, because I've been there. It's very expensive to restore these cars, and when I started I didn't have a lot of money. But early on, when I was a young man, I learned to do this, and I could repair holes in seats, I could recondition door panels. I used to be into Corvettes. I was very popular with the Corvette clubs because of what I could do to the interiors on those cars. And of course, Mopar, I used to go to the Mopar Nationals in Chicago. Mopar Club would meet me, and I'd do cracks in their dashes and fix holes in their seats and stuff, and did that a few times. So once again, signing off. I hope you have enjoyed this, and if you have any comments or questions, be sure and post them, and I'll answer you back. Just one final little tip that I want to give you. I've run into situations where I wasn't happy with how much gloss these dashes had when they were repaired. If you look at the front of this dash, it has less shine, even though it has the same dye on it, and that's pretty typical. I could actually fool with this if I wanted, and put dry coats on here and actually get it to be more of a matte finish, which is probably the last trick that I'll do on this, is to knock some of that shine down. And I may actually sand it just a little tiny bit more, which will actually help take some of that shine away. But if I lightly sand it and then I hit it with a really, really dry coat of vinyl dye, that should take care of it. They also have the vinyl dye in a semi-gloss. I don't know which one. Oh yeah, this was gloss black. That's probably the problem. You can actually get semi-gloss and flat, and that would actually make this look even more day one and less emerald. Just want to add that on. I'm going to put this on the end of the last video. Signing off. All right, I just went over this dash with a Scotch-Brite, the gray Scotch-Brite, and I knocked down the shine, which makes it look much more natural. In fact, if you had a dash done, it would not exactly have the correct grain of the original dash anyhow. It's very close, but it's not exact. And in this case, this is similar to what you would get, but you can see the gloss has gone off of it. It actually looks very, very nice in person. And I haven't even wiped it down. I just kind of hit it with a gray Scotch-Brite. Probably took me less than 2 minutes to do. Anyway, I just want to add that on too for those of you who would like it.